Hello Summers and welcome back to another episode of ProGuides OP Pick or Ban, now on patch 10.21. These are the champions that are a little bit overtuned for one reason or another, so they'll have the power to affect your games more than they otherwise should. A lot of that you'll be able to want to deny their existence altogether or secure them for your own team. But before we begin, today's question of the day is, what's your favorite off-meta pick? In our videos, we always try to cover the best champions in the current meta, but we want to know what works for you. Personally, I'm a big fan of Brand Jungle. His clear is surprisingly quick and healthy, he has the stun for ganks, and he's even a good duelist when it comes to those river skirmishes. And an added bonus is that his passive absolutely melts Dragon and Baron. Tell us your answers in the comments down below. And one last thing, be sure to check us out at ProGuides.com. We have the best roster of coaches, top tier live classes from instructors like Mike Young and Zyrene, and courses covering a variety of roles and champions from your favorite pro players such as Doublelift. I also highly recommend you guys check out our VOD review feature, as this is a pretty good way to improve. All you have to do is submit a replay file and the coach sends you guys back a fully reviewed VOD. It's a super convenient option that saves you some time, so go ahead and give it a try. Now, without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. To start things off, we'll be looking at Fiora in the top lane. Already a strong contender for most of the season, the Q buff that she received on patch 10.16 pushed her even further ahead, and she's been thriving ever since. She's been able to survive pretty much all of the matchups in the top lane, and even in the worst lanes, she scales so hard that eventually, if you farm up and reach about 2 or 3 items, you'll outscale most of any other champions in the game. Basically, don't int and you'll win and make it into 25 minutes. Your passive vitals work best with the quick bursty traits and allows you to build an HP advantage pretty fast if you consistently proc them, since you heal while you deal extra damage to your opponent. So basically you hit him where it hurts, kind of like you guys in the comments calling me cringe. Anyway, they do true damage based on the opponent's max HP, and even the tankiest champions in the game get shredded by Fiora in the later stages of the game, when you pick up enough AD to boost up that percentage up by a good amount. Q's dash is what lets you take your preferred style of short trades on the early game, with a general pattern in lane being to wait for a vital to show up on your opponent, which is closest to you, and then using your Q to proc it, and then backing off before they can even react. For the opponents that do try to go on the offensive, W can pretty much shut down any of them, and the fact that it blocks incoming damage and reflects CC is quite nice. But what makes it so hard for other duelists in the top lane to deal with Fiora is the crippling attack speed slow that riposted flicks, whether or not Fiora blocks anything with the parry. When you pick up a couple of items and are ready for your extended trades, Ease Slow does the trick, with the crit on the second auto just being a nice bonus. The sticking power of this ability, alongside with your Q's super short cooldown once it's maxed and you have 40% CDR, means that pretty much no champion can escape you in a side lane. To round out this already OP kit, Fiora's ultimate lets you force any fight that you want, and once you pass 3 items, lets you kill almost any champion 1v1, even under their turret. Fiora is best played in the side lane at mid to late game. While team fighting is definitely possible, side laning gives you the best chances of controlling how things go. So try to stick with that most of the time, unless you are 100% needed, preferably when you go for a TP flank. As far as builds go, you could switch out the tanky items in the last 2 slots that we recommended here for some offensive items, like Bloodthirster for crazier healing and Mortal Reminder for grievous wounds, if you feel like those better suit your needs in the game. Our other top laner for this patch is the not so stealthy ninja, Jhin. While he's technically a tank, he's not the typical CC bot that just lives to play for his team. He has a strong lane phase, able to beat out almost all of the melee matchups, and easily survive most of the ranged ones. His passive shield works both to mitigate the pokes that you're trying to farm, or give you stronger trades when you are the one forcing the fights. Activating Q alone can give you the edge in winning trades, but making sure that your sword passes through your enemy is key to absolutely pummeling them. That bonus and attack speed really hurts. Since most top laners deal with their damage via auto attacks, W's dodge zone is great for making it so your opponents can't even trade back when you go in, but its usefulness doesn't end there. In team fights, you could use it to block for your vulnerable carries. Just remember that you have to use your Q to bring the sword to you, since the zone is around your sword and not Jhin himself. While Q does give you some hard-hitting attacks and W makes it so you can't really take damage, E's taunt is how you actually force trades in lane. But be careful. It's also your only escape, so don't just taunt in on cooldown without considering where the enemy jungle is and how gankable you are at any given point in the game. And while all of that makes you a great duelist in the side lane, what really makes you useful as a split pusher is Jhin's ultimate. While teleport takes 4 seconds to channel, with most TP warriors not even being right in the middle of the fight, Jhin's ultimate lets you teleport right into the fray in just 3 seconds. On top of that, with a huge shield. Even before the team fighting phase of the game, the global ability can turn close fights bottom lane into complete wins, all the while saving your own summoner TP to go back to top without having to lose much CS or turret plates. Before we move on to the jungle, I just want to mention some of Jhin's flexibility. His kit gives him some crazy strong dueling power, and his item build can be so flexible that he can swap out of his items from game to game to match any opponents in the side lane. Dealing with bruisers, the standard build that we listed will do the trick. But in games where you're laning against a mage, pick up a Wit's End and swap out the tabbies for Berg Treads, and they can't deal with you at all in the side lane. Here's another look at those top lane builds. Now to the jungle, we're going to be first talking about Hecarim. We have been very vocal about how strong he is, with him being pretty much a top 5 jungler since Ghost was buffed earlier this season. He will quite literally trample all over you, because you know, he's a horse. And with this somewhat newish phase rush build, you bring 4 runes all aimed at boosting your movement speed, making the most of your passive and letting you one-shot foes faster than before. Q's extremely low cooldown gives you incredibly fast jungle clear speeds, and with proper kiting, you can pretty much heal up to full HP off of raptor camps. All you have to do is tag them all with the Q to apply Talisman's Life Leech. Move on to one side of their leash range, tagging them all again, moving to the other side of the leash range, and then repeating until they're dead. And with his Q being so spammable, it constantly allows him to proc Trinity Force when fighting other champions, giving the item insanely strong synergy on Hecarim. W's aura provides a little bit of extra sustain in the jungle, but the healing is capped on monsters. The healing is really noticeable in teamfights though. In fact, when combined with healing from Death's Dance, W's aura helps Hecarim become a drain tank in the same vein as Fiddlesticks and Swain, even with his super high damage build, making him almost able to cut down foes like Tryndamere with the apparent tankiness of Maokai. Ease wrapping movement speed serves him to chase down any opponent, but it's also much more than a gap closer. The knockback can be used to displace a target champs closer to your teammates, making the immobile targets really easy for pickings. And to add on to the displacement, the AoE fair on Hecarim's ult can scatter the entire team in the fight. The primary combo for engaging in fights will be using E to charge into position, R to scatter the enemy team, and E's ramming attack to knock the priority target into your team for an easy pick, setting your team up for what should be an easily won 4v5. If you prefer a more farm-heavy, hyper-scaling jungler that can pick up kills from literally anywhere on the map, even when dead, then Karthus is the OP pick for you. His passive makes it so that when you're fed, no matter how hard the enemy team tries to dogpile on you and shut you down, you can still bring 1 or 2 of all of them to the grave with you. Most junglers excel at killing certain champions, with their kits giving them either better AoE damage or better single target style of kit. But Karthus' Q is an exception, since it does damage in AoE, but also double damages on single targets, which gives him a crazy quick clear speed. With proper kiting on your camps, you can full clear your jungle and have full HP quicker than most of any other champion in the game. Karthus is an absolute menace and farming machine. While your main focus should be clearing out your camps once it's time to go for a gank or just to take part in a team fight, bear in mind that you're immobile. So you really rely on good placement on your W's wall, with the slow helping you guys set up your teammates and allies engages, or just help you stop the other team from going in. On top of the slow, it even shreds magic resist to help you guys cut through anyone caught up in it. When clearing your jungle, especially in the early game, it's super important not to use your E so much, as it can cause you to run out of mana pretty quickly. But in team fights, you can contribute tons of damage, especially when you die in the middle of everyone and the fight continues right on top of your passive. What better way to top off a farm-heavy jungler's kit than a nuke that can hit literally anyone in the map? Well, there really isn't one. Whether you're killing blue buff in base looking for your next item or just done ganking in a different lane, your ultimate's global presence lets you influence the map in no way that any other jungler can. All you have to do is press R and maybe get a kill or 2. The most important skill when playing Karthus is to have some minimap awareness. Learn to look at fights that are happening in lanes while farming the jungle, so you don't really miss out on potential free kills or assists. While Karthus has almost no mechanical skill floor aside from landing his Q, he is heavily reliant on correct pathing, map awareness, and good decision making. If you struggle in any of those fields, be sure to hit us up at ProGuides.com, where our challenger coaches could help you refine those abilities. Here's a quick recap of those jungle builds. Moving along to one of the most popular role in League of Legends, we're going to be starting off with Zed. Despite being melee, he outtrades, outshoves, and outroams most if not all mages played in the role, as long as you are good at landing his combos. While his passive is not the flashiest part of his kit, the enhanced auto attack damage against low targets make farming a breeze, with perfect last hitting under turret being practically effortless and very satisfying. And when it's time for you guys to go for an all-in on your opponent, the bonus damage can definitely help secure the kill. Q is where all of your lane strength comes from, with it giving you all the wave clear and poke you need. When you add in your W shadow copying ability, it lets you even shove in and out trade the best wave clearing mages in the game. E gives you more AoE damage, but the real use of this ability comes when you use it in conjunction with your shadow. It does the same damage and also slows on hit, making it easier to land your Qs on them. And to add a little bit, or I guess a lot of outplay potential in your kit, your ultimate brings a lot to the table. First, it gives you a wave to close the gap on an opponent, even following them through flash if they use it too early. Second, the untarget ability it grants can be used to cancel out a ton of incoming threats. From Ashe arrows to Orianna ults, the possibilities are endless. And then you just jump on them and then kill them. And lastly, your ultimate shadow even gives you more mobility, letting you chase far for a kill and instantly snapping back once you finish the job. When playing Zed, once you get the lead, run with it. Establish vision and play around it, going in for picks on isolated carries, taking an unsafe path or farming on their own unprotected in a side lane. Don't get too caught up in teamfights, you're much more at home in a side lane or smaller scale skirmishes. If your team is in a spot where they have to fight for an objective, look for a flank, or just to catch a squishy champ rotating to fight of their own. If being a flashy solo carry isn't your thing and you'd rather play a hard-hitting, beefy bruiser mid, then Galio is definitely more than a solid choice. His Q and passive give him a ton of pushing power to always have mid priority and then rotate to the early game skirmishes. His W's passive shield lets him shrug off any mages that try to poke him down while shoving in, while the active on the ability makes him pretty much a full-on tank, as it not only taunts the targets, but also grants a huge amount of damage reduction. Of course, this is useful as an engage tool when it comes to setting up ganks, but in teamfights it can be used to peel off your ADC, or as an interrupt on a channeled ability like Cat or Miss Fortune's ultimate. E gives you some mobility for engaging or dodging incoming abilities, as well as an extra layer of CC to increase your lockdown abilities. These three basic abilities make Galio a pretty strong, well-rounded AP bruiser, but what makes him such a team-focused pick is his ultimate. The impact it can have on a teamfight is absolutely nuts. It serves the dual purpose of following up on an ally diving deep to engage on an enemy, or as a way of protecting your teammates, with the enemies being forced to back off or just take a gigantic knockup if they further their chase. On top of the huge damage and CC, the magic shield it can grant to all allies can nullify the ultimates of certain champions. If the enemy team has a scary AP threat like Vladimir or Karthus, or maybe even a Fiddlesticks, make sure to keep their ultimates in mind when figuring out when the best time to counter with your ultimate. This unsealed build is a little bit different from the traditional Aftershock Galio or Predator that we've been seeing in Worlds. Galio's biggest weakness is not being able to get on the enemy targets, but with the unsealed spellbook he can rotate through summer spells and just keep proccing Nimbus Cloak, helping to overcome that one weakness. Take another look at the mid lane builds. Like we predicted before her release, and to no one's surprise, Samira has been released as an absolute monster of a champion. But even with an immediate hotfix and a nerf in patch 10.21, she's still going to be one of the best carries in this role. Her being able to swap into melee attacks for bonus damage make her the perfect pick for ultra aggressive ADCs that want to get into the fray, with the style portion of her passive rewarding combos properly over mindlessly face rolling your way to a win, though I think it's personally quite easy to get her combo meter up. Her range Q simply adds some poking power in lane, with the melee version being high damage AoE wave clear, with both being used to stacking up style points thanks to her low cooldown. While most high damage hyper carries are immobile and rely on their team to protect them from all enemy threats, Samira comes fully equipped with a way to deal with danger on her own. I mean, not only can she just block projectiles, she can have a dash that resets on kills, and her ultimate is just kind of straight up nuts. While Sivir can use a spell shield to block a single spell, Samira's W can straight up destroy all of incoming projectiles, from range auto attacks to thresh hook and even an Ash arrow. And when that's not enough, her dash can also be used to dash to allies, which means that you'll always have at least a few options for an escape route. Well, that is if you aren't using it to chase down and slaughter your enemies. And once you get good at comboing your skills and your autos to build that style rank up to the S quickly, your ultimate is a whirlwind of death that can not only crit, but lifesteal, meaning that you can pretty much sit in the middle of 5 champions and heal through their damage once you're fed. Then if you get one kill, then you're just going to be dashing everywhere, getting more kills, stacking more ultimates, spinning and shooting more and just never dying. To be fair, Samira has a high skill floor and ceiling with a lot of grass before you can really make her work to her full potential, but she is still quite interesting to pick up, and you can still make use of her. Personally though, I really do think that Samira is easy to pick up but really hard to master to her full potential. You might need a lot of games in before you can fully utilize her kit, and that's kind of scary because I've seen people who haven't even utilized her kit still pentakill. Our second pick for ADC is Jhin. He's able to bully most of the other ADCs out of lane, and with tanks being not too popular in the current meta, he's able to push the lead in his team fights and carry pretty consistently. Jhin's 4-shot base auto attack passive grants him a bursty, unique trading pattern, with the 4-shot crit giving him the best last hitting power in the game. Be it on minions or champions, while the huge burst of movement speed it gives also makes you forget that you're technically playing an immobile champion. Q mostly functions as an extra pushing power, but if you manage to bounce a couple into the enemy team before it kills a few minions, the poke damage really starts to stack up. While most ADCs lack any form of hard CCs outside of their ultimates, Jhin's W allows him to follow up on any allies engage, or even set up the ally himself with the root. While most Jhins don't level E until both Q and W are maxed, ticking in lane early can be actually useful for a couple of reasons. The traps can be really useful for pushing at the waves, maintaining bush control, and even help you guys stop the jungle ganks before they even happen, as well as marking and slowing the enemies so you can hit them with your W. When an enemy just barely escapes with their life, ulting gives you an artful way of finishing the job, but that's not the only time it's useful. Sometimes you aren't quite in the range of the fight and ulting is the only way you can participate. At others, your team might be trying to catch out an out-of-place enemy, but they aren't quite in range. Your ultimate can ensure that you slow the enemy for your team to catch up. You can even walk up in river and gank your own mid laner with the ultimate in laning phase. A well-timed surprise visit can actually set up a kill on an enemy that's barely even overextended. Here's one last look at those ADC's build before we move on. Now for our last set of champions, we have our supports starting with Lulu. Her ability to buff up carries and completely shut down the enemy threats make her a well-rounded enchanter that pairs incredibly well with any other hyper carry. Her passive even gives her strong trading in lane, giving her the ability to tit for tat auto trades harder than any other enchanters. This would make her especially good for punishing shorter range lanes. Qs allow her to help her ADC shove in the wave when they want, and this provides good poke and even a little bit of disengage thanks to the slow. W is honestly Lulu's most broken ability. If using it on an ally, it gives a huge buff to their DPS, but when using it on an enemy, it just debuffs their DPS because, well, they can't DPS at all. No matter how fed someone is, if they don't even have cleanse or a QSS, getting polymorphed means that they're doing nothing but hopping around like a squirrel, a cupcake, or whatever skin-specific harmless thing that they are, unable to do anything. And sometimes it's best to just use it for the movement speed that it can really grant an ally to help them engage the fight. While everyone says enchanters are easy, knowing who to use W on and when to use it is what sets great Lulus apart from the mediocre ones and that just spam out their ADCs no matter what. So just try to put some thought into it. E's main function, of course, is as a shield for blocking incoming damage, but it also has a pretty strong secondary role as well. Giving Lulu's picks to a high attack speed champion adds a ton of DPS to the autos along with Pix's auto attacks. There are also some creative ways to use Lulu's E beyond helping allied champions. Since Lulu's Q also casts from Pix's location, you can use the E on a minion to extend your Q's cast range well beyond its normal range. Sometimes this trick can even net free kills on an unsuspecting enemy recalling under their tower, and which they assume that they're safe. Like her W, Lulu's ult can serve a few different functions. The knockup can cancel dashes and jumps, with the well-timed ultimate being able to completely negate the engage of something like Zac. Of course, it can be used to peel for an ADC, with the knockup and slow both helping them escape danger. But it can also serve as an offensive tool. A frontliner Lulu ult is not only harder to kill, but the additional CC and slow aura can give tanks and bruisers inescapable sticking power. Like I said, it's just like her W, you just have to think about when to use it best in the fight. And to round out our list, we have Blitzcrank, who can single-handedly turn a game into the head with one quick catch. One of League of Legends' older champions, he hasn't really done anything complex to the game except for just grab stuff and knock shit up. In fact, even his passive is so simple. It's a shield that makes him a little bit tankier. But in spite of his simple kit, his Q's rather long-range catch potential makes him an S-tier pick, being able to grab enemies over walls and out from under the turrets into their deaths. In lane, getting hooked can mean falling behind any other ADC. Out of lane, getting hooked means that, well, losing towers, dragons, and even barons if it's at the right time. And since this hook can be cast from so far out of reach of the enemies, you can get chance after chance without risking death like any other supports that you have to dive into the enemy to engage fights. W's burst of movement speed lets you quickly adjust your angle and catch up to your fleeing targets. But be careful that you don't use it to run up too close, since the subsequent slow does give the enemy team a chance to retaliate if you miss the hook. E's knockup should always be comboed after the hook, and in team fights, it has such a short cooldown that you can consistently use it to disrupt champions. Blitz's ultimate provides some extra DPS passively, giving him surprisingly strong short trades, but the biggest part of it is his active. Not only does it give him a huge boost in burst damage, but it's one of the few abilities in the game that completely destroys shields. This happens before he even does its damage, meaning that Morgana's Black Shield doesn't even block the silencing effect. And since it has a pretty sizable area of effect, it serves as a large, instant, and reliable way of interrupting champions like Katarina and Fiddlesticks that have channeled effects on their teamfights. When playing Blitzcrank, try to use your roam timers well. Pulling off a gank with the jungler is sure to tilt the enemy mid laner. In the mid to late game, playing for picks with your hooks is the way to go. You don't really contribute much to a full 5v5 team fight as other supports, so go for those grabs. And remember, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, but also doesn't hurt to hold on to your grabs sometimes to assert some pressure in lane. Here's one of those last looks at the support builds. And that's gonna be it for the OP Pick or Ban 10.21 edition. Remember to let us know what extra champion that you banned if you could in the comments down below, and make sure to check out our website for more in-depth content and guides that were made by your favorite pro players and streamers. Thanks for watching, guys. Stay healthy, stay safe, and good luck on the Rift. Peace.